The Fort Braddock Armory always smelled the same: gun oil, steel shavings, dust, and the sweaty anxiety of recruits who weren't sure if they were ready for military life. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead like they were interrogating everyone in the room, and metal racks filled with rifles towered along every wall, creating canyons of weapons that hummed with cold authority. 21 recruits stood shoulder to shoulder in formation, most of them doing whatever they could to hide their nerves. Boots tapped, throats swallowed. One kid in the back whispered options under his breath like he was about to order a sandwich instead of a firearm. Beretta or Glock, Beretta or Glock. Behind a reinforced window, the armorer, a gruff man with a beer gut and an attitude, tossed pistols across the counter like they were bags of dog food. Each recruit stepped forward, stamped a thumbprint, grabbed their assigned weapon, and stepped aside. No choices, no customization, no exceptions. That was how it always went. Until she stepped forward. Avery Quinn. The one almost nobody noticed. At 5'4" with a quiet, almost monk-like calmness, she had a presence so subtle that most recruits forgot she was even in their platoon. She didn't talk much, didn't brag about past achievements, didn't flex like the others. She kept her hair tied back tight, her uniform squared away perfectly, and her emotions locked behind an expression that resembled still water, calm, reflective, impossible to read. But if anyone had ever looked closely, really closely, they might have noticed how her eyes constantly scanned the room, how she memorized exits without turning her head, how she watched people's hands before their faces. But nobody watched her that carefully. Nobody except the one man who would step through that doorway moments from now. Avery stepped up to the counter, chin raised slightly, shoulders squared. The armorer barely glanced at her. Quinn Avery, pistol assignment, SIG P320 standard issue. He reached for a box. Avery didn't move. Requesting permission for personal firearm issuance, she said, voice clear, calm, polite, but firm. The armorer paused, then snorted. Several recruits snickered behind her. One of them coughed a laugh so loud he had to pretend he was clearing his throat. The armorer leaned on the counter, amused already. Cadet, this ain't a mall. You don't request personal firearms. You get what the base gives you. Avery kept her face perfectly still. I'm requesting a black Talon, compatible platform, sir. The laughter that erupted behind her was instant, explosive, and downright cruel. Someone slapped their thigh. Another leaned on his buddy to keep from falling over. A third guy wiped tears from his eyes. Oh, this is good. She wants a black Talon. What is she, Navy SEAL too? Get her a sparkly one while you're at it. Even the armorer chuckled, shaking his head. You want a what? Black Talon, he laughed again. Cadet, you don't even look like you could lift the magazine. Avery said nothing. She didn't need to. Because right then the air changed. The temperature felt like it dropped 10 degrees. A strange, heavy silence slid over the room, the kind of silence that grabs the spine and whispers. Pay attention. Boots thudded against the armory floor. Big, heavy boots. Every recruit stiffened instinctively. A presence entered, the kind of presence that made even cocky soldiers stand up straighter. General Marcus Hale. A legend, a battlefield myth, the man whose name echoed in elite units as the one commander you never wanted to disappoint. His stories were whispered, enemy snipers couldn't hit him, explosions never touched him, he could sense danger the way wolves smell blood. Hale didn't need to bark orders to command respect. His existence was enough. He was just passing through, or so everyone thought. Until he heard Avery's words. Black Talon. That stopped him. That froze him. His boots halted mid-step. His shoulders stiffened. His eyes slowly turned toward her, sharp enough to cut through the air. Avery didn't notice him at first. She kept her posture clean, respectful, waiting for permission or denial. But Hale wasn't looking at her face. He was staring at her wrist. Her sleeve had ridden up slightly when she rested her hand on the counter, revealing a small mark burned faintly into the skin. It wasn't a tattoo. It wasn't ink at all. It was a brand, a symbol, a winged bullet encircled by a black ring. Hale inhaled sharply, the sound so quiet only he heard it. No, it couldn't be. Not after all these years. Not that symbol. Not here. Not now. His heartbeat stumbled, the way it hadn't since a night he tried very hard never to think about. A night involving shadows, betrayal, and the last time he ever saw the symbol in the real world. He took a step forward. Then another. And another. The room followed his movements with terrified, silent eyes. Avery finally turned slightly when she sensed someone approaching. Her movement was subtle, respectful. But Hale's reaction was not subtle at all. He stopped directly behind her. He stared at her wrist like it was a ghost resurfacing. The recruit sensed it. Even the armorer's smirk faded. Something was happening. Something big. "Cadet Quinn," Hale said quietly, too quietly, "where did you get that mark?" Avery blinked once. She didn't look embarrassed. She didn't hide it. She didn't even look confused. "It's inherited, sir," she said. A crack shot through Hale's composure. Inherited. There was only one man in the world who could have passed that symbol down. Only one man who carried it after the unit fell. Only one man Hale swore was dead. Whispers rippled through the recruits. "What's going on? What's that symbol? Why's the general acting like that?" Someone whispered the word classified like it was a curse. Another muttered, "Black Talon," like it was a ghost story he wasn't supposed to say out loud. But Hale didn't hear any of it. His mind was racing through memories he'd locked away. Missions nobody spoke of, orders not written down, and a squad that officially never existed. Avery turned fully now and faced him, posture respectful but firm. Hale looked her in the eye. "Cadet," he said, voice gravel rough, "who was your father?" Avery opened her mouth to answer. But a thunderous alarm suddenly screamed across the armory. A shrill metallic wail. The lights snapped from white to red, sirens rippled down the corridors. A synthetic voice echoed. "Unauthorized breach. Armory level. Lockdown initiated." Recruits jolted in panic. The armorer ducked behind a crate. Someone shouted, "What the hell is that?" Hale spun toward the hallway. Someone was inside the building. Not accidentally. Not randomly. With purpose. With timing. With precision. Hale's eyes widened. They weren't here for the base. They were here for her. Avery felt the hairs on her arms rise. She had no idea what was coming. But General Hale did. He turned back to her with a face that looked carved from stone. "Cadet," he said in a low rumble, "get behind me." Because the danger wasn't coming. It was already inside. The alarm shrieked through Fort Braddock, bouncing off the metal walls, deafening in its intensity. Red lights flashed like warnings from some otherworldly signal. Recruits ducked, some tripping over each other, while the armorer scrambled under his counter, muttering prayers and curses in equal measure. The metallic clatter of rifles falling into racks added to the chaos. But Avery Quinn didn't flinch. She didn't duck. She didn't panic. Her eyes, calm yet sharp as obsidian, scanned every shadow, every doorway, every potential threat. Years of quiet observation had trained her to notice things other people missed. Footsteps that weren't supposed to be there. Hands that lingered too long on a gun. The faintest mechanical hum in the air that didn't belong. And now Hale was moving fast. General Marcus Hale, who had seen more combat than most could dream of, wasn't panicked. He was focused, calculating, precise. He reached her side in 3 long strides, his face set, jaw tight. "Cadet Quinn," he said, low enough that only she could hear over the alarm, "where did you get that mark?" Avery's throat tightened slightly. She had always been careful, too careful, about who knew her heritage. Her father's name had been erased from official records. Black Talon Unit 0 had been classified as disbanded, erased, buried under layers of falsified reports and whispered denials. Only a handful of people outside the intelligence community even remembered it. "It's inherited, sir," she said again, steady and deliberate, almost like a shield. Hale's expression changed in a fraction of a second. Shock, recognition, fear, gratitude, every emotion collided in his eyes at once. "Inherited," he repeated, more to himself than to her. "Avery, tell me, who was your father?" Avery hesitated. She didn't speak lightly about him. Her father had been a ghost in her life. A man whose presence was a series of careful shadows and whispered warnings. But Hale had been his friend, someone she trusted. At least, she hoped she did. "His name was Elias Quinn, sir," she said softly. Hale froze. The name seemed to echo off the walls. His eyes narrowed, remembering a younger man with the same steely determination and almost fanatical discipline he saw in Avery now. Elias Quinn, last operative of Black Talon Unit 0, legendary and feared, officially listed as KIA years ago in a training accident. Hale swallowed. The room felt colder now, the alarm a distant backdrop compared to the gravity of what he realized. "KIA," he muttered. No, that wasn't an accident, not for him, not for anyone in Unit 0. Avery's gaze didn't waver. "He protected me," she said quietly, "kept me hidden, taught me what he could, and told me nothing about the rest." Hale nodded slowly, his face tightening into a mask of steel and worry. "And that mark," he said, gesturing toward her wrist. "The Talon mark, he gave it to you." "Yes, sir, to identify me in case they ever found me," she said. Hale's eyes darted toward the armory doors, then back to her. He pulled her behind a row of racks just as a loud clang echoed from the hall. Someone was inside. Someone moving quickly, not like a recruit, not like a civilian, calculated, precise, predatory. Hale pressed a hand to her shoulder. "Cadet, they've found you." Avery's stomach tightened. She didn't know who they were. Her mind raced. Black Talon operatives were supposed to be gone, purged, disbanded, buried. And yet here they were, moving through the armory like ghosts. "They're after me," she whispered. "Yes," Hale said grimly. "Your father left a trail they've been following for years, and now," his voice dropped, a cold edge slicing through the chaos, "now they've traced it to you." Avery's pulse hammered. "Trace what? My father's legacy." Hale shook his head. "More than that, you carry it in your blood. You are the key. The last seraph, the last operative capable of accessing what your father and his team built before Black Talon was officially shut down." Her mind faltered. The seraph. "The project name," Hale said. "Unit 0, Black Talon, Seraph. Names change, people disappear. But the work, the weapons, the intelligence, it never dies, and neither does the threat." Avery felt the hairs on her arms stand up. She wasn't just a cadet anymore. She wasn't just someone trying to make it through basic training. She was a target, a living key, something people had been hunting her whole life without her knowing. The alarm shrieked louder and the lights flickered. Hale's eyes swept the room. "They're moving faster than we thought. Someone inside knows exactly where to go." Avery noticed then the armorer wasn't laughing anymore. He wasn't hiding under the counter either. He had frozen, watching the doorway like a deer staring down a wolf. Other recruits were clutching rifles they weren't trained to fire yet. The panic was palpable. Hale crouched lower. "Cadet, your father didn't die in that accident. He vanished because of this, because of them, and now they want what he kept hidden." Avery's breath caught. "What's hidden?" Hale's jaw tightened. He leaned close, voice barely above a whisper. "The Black Talon Vault, classified beyond top-secret clearance. Everyone who survived the purge has been looking for it. And the moment they spotted the Talon mark on you, they knew the key had resurfaced." Her mind reeled. "The Talon mark me?" "Yes," he said firmly. "And Avery, if they get to you before we can secure it, they won't just take it, they'll take you." Her pulse spiked. "Take me." "Alive," Hale said. "That's the worst kind of threat, not death, control, extraction, brainwashing, weaponization. Your father trained you to avoid this." But he glanced at the door where shadows flickered as someone moved silently in the hall. "They're already here." Avery's heart raced. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't a training scenario. This was life or death, not just for her, but for Hale, for the recruits, for everything her father had tried to protect. Suddenly, the door to the armory shuddered violently. Metal groaned as something struck it from the other side. Sparks flew. The reinforced door was shaking as if something or someone wanted in badly. "General," one of the recruits shouted, "they're breaking in." Hale grabbed Avery by the arm and yanked her low behind a counter. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned. "Listen carefully," he said, whispering through gritted teeth. "Stay down, stay quiet, and do not, I mean it, make a sound." Avery nodded, body tight, muscles coiled. Her mind raced. Her father's words, bits and pieces of training, came back to her. When you're alone, they are everywhere. When you feel safe, you're already trapped. Trust your instincts, not your eyes. The metal doors groaned again. A loud crash echoed through the armory as the hinges bent, sparks flying in every direction. Hale pressed himself against her, a silent shield, as a shadow appeared through the smoke-filled doorway. Movement fast, deliberate, controlled. Not like any recruit, not like anyone who should be in this armory. The figure paused, scanning. Then another shadow joined it, and another. 3, maybe 4, all in black tactical suits with visors that reflected the alarm lights like cold mirrors. They moved like ghosts. Silent, perfect, terrifying. Avery's stomach dropped. She had seen that movement before, in old training videos her father had shown her. Movements of Black Talon operatives. Elite soldiers wiped from history, disbanded, but clearly alive. Hale whispered urgently in her ear, "Cadet, you need to understand. These are not here for the base. They're here for you." She swallowed, her pulse pounded in her ears. "Me? Why?" "Because," Hale said, eyes narrowing, "you're the last piece, the last key, and they don't fail." Avery's hands tightened into fists. For the first time, she felt something she had suppressed her whole life: fear. But it was tempered with the cold, calculating fire her father had instilled in her. Because Avery Quinn didn't just survive. She adapted, she planned, and she would fight. The shadow moved closer. Hale's hand pressed firmly on her back. "Remember," he whispered, "stay with me, trust no one else. Not yet." And then, as the first footfalls of the intruders echoed closer, Avery realized the truth. They had found her. And they weren't leaving without taking everything. The armory shook. Sparks from the breached doors rained down like shards of fire as the first black-suited figure slipped through, moving with impossible speed and precision. Hale pressed Avery down behind a stack of steel lockers, using his massive frame as a shield. His breath came fast, controlled, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. Avery's heart slammed in her chest. The world seemed to narrow into the figure in black at the threshold. No insignia, no name, just a visor that reflected the red alarm lights and a gun held perfectly, almost casually, at the ready. The intruder paused, scanning, and then the air shifted, the same instinctive awareness she'd inherited from her father. The intruder wasn't just moving. They were hunting, calculating. Every twitch of muscle, every inch of space, every shadow accounted for. "They're Black Talon operatives," Avery whispered, almost inaudibly, though the words burned in her mind. Hale's jaw tightened. I know, that's why you're alive right now. They've been looking for you for years, and now they've found you. Another figure appeared behind the first. A second. A third. 3 operatives, black as night, moving like predators, flowing across the armory floor with silence that was physically painful to hear. Even the recruits who were frozen behind the racks could feel it. Something primal, something wrong. One of the operatives paused, raising a small silver device. A scanning beam shot out, sweeping the room in a precise line until it landed directly on Avery's wrist. The Talon mark glowed faintly beneath the scanner. A beep. Target acquired. Hale reacted instantly, yanking Avery back behind cover and firing a round past the first intruder's shoulder. Sparks flew as the shot ricocheted off the metal walls, but the operatives didn't flinch. They didn't even pause. Avery's pulse hammered. She recognized the movement. She had seen it in flashes of training her father had shown her, a choreography of death, so precise it almost looked like dance. These weren't ordinary soldiers. These weren't the base's security forces. These were ghosts, shadows that had survived purges and disappearances that had been buried in classified files. They shouldn't exist, she breathed, more to herself than anyone else. They shouldn't, Hale muttered, but they do, and they're hunting the key. A crash echoed from the rear of the armory as another intruder forced open a secondary exit. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. The walls shuddered. The recruits screamed, but their voices were lost in the chaos. Hale's hand pressed firmly against Avery's back. "Listen to me," he said urgently. "They're not here to kill you, not yet. They're here to take you alive." Avery's stomach dropped. Alive, extraction, control, weaponization. She had trained for combat scenarios, drills, simulations, but nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing. The first intruder moved closer, scanning methodically. His visor reflected every red alarm light in the room like a pool of liquid fire. Avery's mind raced. She could hear her father's voice in her memory. "Stay calm. Move with purpose. The second you panic, they own you." Hale fired again, but the intruder barely flinched. Sparks flew from the wall behind him. The movement of the intruders was perfect, precise, lethal. "They're testing us," Hale muttered, voice tense. "They want to know what we can do, what we'll do." Avery's hands clenched into fists. She felt the familiar coiled readiness that had been drilled into her since childhood. She wasn't just a cadet anymore. She was the last living link of Black Talon Unit 0. She had inherited their precision, their instincts, and now she had to survive. Another intruder moved silently toward the armory racks. He crouched, lifting a rifle that had been left behind by one of the frozen recruits. But he didn't aim. He scanned. He calculated. He was a ghost, and the armory was his hunting ground. Avery could hear Hale muttering under his breath, almost praying. "We've trained for breaches, but not like this. Not for Talon." The intruders weren't just moving. They were learning. Every step, every hesitation, every mistake analyzed in real time. Avery realized with a jolt, these weren't just elite soldiers. They were engineers of death, trained to adapt to every possible reaction. And right now, Avery was the variable. The first operative raised a hand, signaling the others. They split, flanking the racks, cutting off all potential exits. The alarm shrieked louder. Lights flickered. Dust fell like rain. Avery's mind raced. She had seconds, maybe less, to act. She scanned her surroundings. Lockers, counters, loose rifles, the crawlspace hatch behind her. Each option was dangerous. Each move could be fatal. Hale's hand gripped her shoulder tighter. "Cadet, remember your training. Remember what your father taught you. You are the key." The words struck her like a shockwave. She was the key. That meant she had a purpose, a target on her back. But it also meant she had the skills, the instincts, the knowledge to fight back. A sudden, sharp, metallic hiss drew her attention. From above, one intruder lowered a rope ladder from the ceiling, descending silently like a shadow. Sparks from the breached lights reflected in his visor. He moved to intercept anyone trying to escape. Another intruder reached the center of the room. The scanner on his wrist flickered. It was tracking her every movement, anticipating her next step. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made muscles ache before a single punch was thrown. Hale whispered urgently, "Go, Avery, now I'll hold them." Avery's pulse spiked. Her instincts screamed, "Move, survive, activate the key." She darted toward the crawlspace hatch. The intruder's movements were synchronized, cutting off exits, predicting her path. One operative lunged just as she reached the edge. She rolled, narrowly avoiding his grasp, scraping her elbows raw against the metal floor. Sparks flew as her shoulder hit a steel beam. Hale fired rounds in quick succession, ricochets lighting up the room, but the intruders adapted, flowing around each shot like water. Avery's fingers found the hatch handle, cold metal, dust and grime. She yanked it open, crawling in just as another operative's hand swiped through empty air where she had been moments ago. She felt the metal hatch slam behind her. Darkness swallowed her. Her breath was ragged. Her pulse screamed. And for the first time, the adrenaline wasn't just survival, it was purpose. She was the last living key of Black Talon Unit 0, and now she had to live. Through the shadows of the maintenance crawlspace, she could hear Hale behind her, grappling with the intruders. His grunts of effort, the ricochet of gunfire, the hiss of movement, all mixed with her own rapid heartbeat. Avery pressed herself against the walls, mind racing. She knew one thing: if she survived tonight, the story of Black Talon would awaken again. If she failed, everything her father had protected would be lost forever. And then she heard it, a distorted voice from the intruders, helmets cold and precise. "Asset located. Extract immediately." Avery froze. The word asset hit her like a thunderclap. She wasn't just a target. She was a key, a tool, a weapon to be controlled. Her chest tightened. The crawlspace was narrow. Shadows pressed in from every angle. And yet, for the first time in her life, she felt the weight of destiny pressing down, not crushing, but awakening. Somewhere in the darkness, Hale's voice whispered urgently, "Don't let them take you, not without a fight." Avery's hand went to her side, instinctively checking the small, hidden device her father had given her years ago. She didn't know if it was ready, but she knew one thing: they hadn't anticipated her. Not fully. Not yet. And that thought, fragile, fleeting, burning, gave her a single, terrifying clarity. They weren't here to kill her. They were here to take everything she represented. And she wasn't going to let them. The crawlspace smelled of metal, oil, and dust, the faint, lingering scent of a place long neglected. Avery Quinn's knees scraped against the cold floor as she followed Hale deeper into the shadowed maze behind the armory lockers. The red alarm light filtered through cracks above, flickering across her pale, determined face. Every step pressed her tighter against reality. She wasn't just a cadet anymore. She was a target, a key, a weapon waiting to be claimed. Hale pressed his back against the wall, holding Avery close. His breath was sharp, steady, professional, but the slight tremor in his hands betrayed a personal panic he refused to voice. Years of combat had honed his instincts, but this situation, this intrusion, this target was different. She wasn't just someone he needed to protect. She carried a legacy he had sworn to bury. "Cadet," he whispered, voice tense, "do you understand what you're carrying?" Avery shook her head slightly, trying to digest everything he'd told her. Black Talon Unit 0, Seraph Project, her father. All of it had been nothing more than fragments, stories half hidden behind whispers and the shadows of old training drills. She had thought her father's life was normal, mundane, the kind of quiet existence a parent hides from the world. But now she realized that normal had been an illusion. "They've been tracking you since the moment you turned 10, Hale said. "They've been patient, calculating. They've waited for the day you'd surface, and they knew exactly who you were." Avery's stomach churned. "Why me?" Hale exhaled sharply. "Because you're the last one, the final piece of Black Talon. Everything your father created, every operative, every plan, every weapon, it all hinges on you. You are the living key to the vault." Avery's hands went cold. "The vault." Hale nodded. "A place so secret it doesn't exist on any official map. A cache of intelligence, technology, and secrets that could destabilize governments if it fell into the wrong hands. Your father and his team, they built it to be untraceable, and until now it was." A sharp clang echoed through the crawlspace as the intruders continued to search the armory. Hale's gaze snapped toward the sound, every muscle coiled like a spring. "They're closer than I thought," he muttered. "Much closer." He pulled something from his pocket, a small drive, no bigger than a dog tag. Its surface was scratched and worn. His fingers trembled slightly as he extended it to her. "Your father gave me this," Hale said. "He said I'd know when to give it to you. I prayed I'd never have to." Avery stared at the drive. It was unassuming, mundane in appearance, yet the weight in Hale's voice made it feel like the heaviest object she had ever held. Her father had hidden her entire life in plain sight, and now, this small device could hold the answers to everything. "I don't understand," Avery whispered. "You will," Hale said, "but first you have to survive what's coming." The metallic clangs outside grew louder. Sparks from the breached armory doors illuminated shadows that shifted and danced across the walls. Avery could feel the tension in the air, the precise, measured movements of trained hunters closing in. The intruders weren't rushing. They were deliberate, calculating, studying the room, analyzing every step, every reflex. Hale pressed his forehead against the cold wall of the crawlspace, listening. "We have 90 seconds, maybe less." Avery's fingers hovered over the drive, unsure whether to insert it into her watch port. She had never activated it before, never known what secrets it might contain. But she realized, deep down, that her father had built it for this exact moment. Hale's voice was low, urgent. "Avery, your father was the last surviving operative of Black Talon Unit 0. Not just a soldier, a weapon, a master strategist. He didn't die in that accident. He disappeared. And now," he hesitated, swallowed, and continued, "they've found the vault through you." Her pulse thundered, her thoughts spun. She felt the weight of destiny pressing down like iron, the last surviving operative, the key to the vault, a living weapon. A sudden metallic hiss echoed from above. Sparks danced across the walls as the intruders found their way into the crawlspace vicinity. The movement was methodical, synchronized, and terrifyingly precise. Each step was measured, each shadow a potential threat. Avery clenched the drive tightly. Hale's hand pressed against hers briefly, steadying her. "If you insert this now," he whispered, "you'll see the truth. But whatever you do, don't panic. They'll try to control the information. They'll try to control you." Avery's eyes narrowed. She had never been one to panic. She had survived drills and scenarios that would have broken most recruits. But this was real. This was life and death, and it was personal. She inserted the drive. Her watch flickered. A holographic projection burst to life, casting the crawlspace in dim, ghostly light. Grainy, dark, distorted images appeared, at first unrecognizable shapes, then a face that made her breath catch. Her father, Elias Quinn, older, battle-worn, eyes haunted yet commanding. "Avery," the projection said, voice trembling slightly. "If you're seeing this, then they've found you. You must listen carefully. There's no time to explain everything, but—" He paused, glancing over his shoulder as if someone were watching him through the recording. "You were engineered for this, for survival, for the vault, and for them." Avery's heart raced. Engineered. Her father had raised her, taught her, kept her hidden, and yet she was something more than human, something designed. "The Black Talon Vault," her father continued, "contains intelligence and capabilities beyond comprehension. Every operative who survived the purge that supposedly ended Unit 0, has been hunting it. Through you. They've been waiting your entire life. And now they're here." A metallic clang echoed above. Sparks erupted from the armory as an intruder's weapon struck the wall. Avery's pulse spiked. Her father's eyes appeared again in the hologram, pleading, commanding. "You are the key, Avery, the only way to secure the vault, and if they take you, the world changes, not for the better." The image shifted. A shadowed figure appeared behind her father, black, faceless, terrifying. The hologram flickered violently. The figure lunged and her father shouted, "Avery, run!" The image cut to static. The room went dark. Avery's breath caught. The crawlspace felt impossibly small. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Sparks from the armory illuminated brief glimpses of shadows approaching. The intruders were moving faster. They were closer. Hale pressed himself against her back, gun raised, eyes scanning every inch of darkness. "They've found us," he muttered. "And Avery, they know the key is here. They will not hesitate to take you." Avery's hands clenched around the drive. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "Run, survive, protect the legacy." The crawlspace shuddered. Metal scraped. Shadows loomed closer. The intruders were no longer testing. They were executing. Avery's mind raced. Her training, her instincts, everything her father had taught her. She realized she had to act and act fast. Hale leaned close. "When you're ready, Avery, this drive will show you everything. But remember, it's not just information. It's a weapon. And if they control it, they'll control you." Her pulse thundered. Sparks fell. Shadows moved. The intruders were inches away. Avery swallowed hard. The drive hummed faintly in her hand, alive with secrets and danger. She felt the weight of her father's legacy pressing down, heavy, inevitable, unyielding. And then the first hand reached toward her, black, gloved, precise. She stiffened, her breath caught. The hunt had begun. The crawlspace was silent now, except for the faint hum of the drive in Avery's hand. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Each beat a countdown to the moment that would define her life, or end it. Shadows from the breached armory stretched like dark fingers across the walls, flickering in the intermittent sparks from the malfunctioning lights above. Hale's presence behind her was steady, anchoring her to reality even as her mind raced with a mix of fear and anticipation. Avery took a deep breath. Her father's holographic message had been brief, fragmented, but it had ignited a spark, a key she couldn't ignore. She pressed the drive into the port on her watch. A surge of light and sound exploded, filling the crawlspace with a ghostly glow. Data streamed across the interface. Files, schematics, coded messages, and operational logs. Avery gasped. The sheer magnitude of it was overwhelming. She had been trained for combat, for survival, but nothing could prepare her for the scope of what her father had left behind. Black Talon Unit 0 hadn't just been a covert ops team. It had been a force capable of reshaping global conflicts, intelligence networks, and weaponized technology. Every operative, every mission, every contingency was encoded here, waiting for her to understand it. "Cadet," Hale whispered urgently, eyes scanning the crawlspace entrance. "They're aware of the activation. They'll come for it, and you, the moment they detect the signal." Avery's fingers danced over the controls instinctively. She accessed the files labeled Talon Vault Protocols. Blueprints for drones, encrypted intelligence networks, and schematics for untraceable weapon systems scrolled across her vision. And then she saw something that made her blood run cold. Operational logs of live missions, with names, faces, and outcomes, including the one tagged Elias Quinn, Final Mission. Her father had survived the purge. Somehow, against all odds, he had escaped, disappearing into the shadows with secrets that could change the world. Hale leaned closer, voice low but urgent. "They've been looking for this for decades. Black Talon wasn't just erased. It was hunted down, every member purged, every file destroyed, every trace eliminated except this. And you just lit the beacon." Avery's jaw tightened. She realized that she hadn't just activated a file, she had triggered a chain reaction. Somewhere outside this armory, Black Talon operatives were converging, tracking her. She was no longer just a cadet. She was the epicenter of a storm decades in the making. A sudden metallic hiss made her flinch. Sparks from the armory doors illuminated the first intruder's visor, the shadow she had seen before creeping closer, weapon raised, calculating. It moved with predatory precision, a machine honed by years of training, past missions, and unyielding discipline. "Stay low," Hale whispered. "They're inside." The intruder's scanner swept the crawlspace. Its visor glinted as it adjusted to detect signatures, heat, movement, the very presence of Avery and Hale. Avery's hands trembled slightly as she navigated the interface, sending encoded false signals, trying to mask her position. The intruder paused. A flicker of doubt crossed its movement, a hesitation that lasted a fraction of a second. Hale seized the opportunity, firing a round that ricocheted off the metal walls. Sparks flew, the intruder flinched, and Avery darted deeper into the crawlspace, drive clutched tightly in her hands. Her mind raced. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about understanding. Her father's message echoed in her head, engineered for survival, engineered for the vault. She realized she had been trained, unknowingly, for this very moment. Every observation, every instinct, every reflex her father had instilled in her was designed to keep her alive. But survival wasn't enough. She needed strategy. She accessed the tactical overlays on the drive, mapping the armory, the crawlspace, and all potential exits. The intruders were moving faster than she anticipated, splitting into coordinated units. One moved to flank her from the rear, another from above, and the third remained in front, sweeping with its scanner. Hale's voice cut through her thoughts. "Avery, remember, you're not just reacting, you're controlling this." The words hit her like a jolt. Control. She realized the drive wasn't just information. It was a weapon, not in the sense of bullets or explosives, but intelligence, strategy, leverage. And if she used it correctly, she could turn the hunters into the hunted. She took a deep breath and activated the next layer of the vault interface. The floor beneath the crawlspace began to display schematics, pressure sensors, automated locking mechanisms, emergency overrides. The intruders wouldn't have accounted for this level of precision. Her father had built failsafes into every possible pathway, contingencies within contingencies. Avery whispered to Hale, "I can trap them, but I'll need you to hold them off just long enough." Hale's eyes narrowed, voice tense. "Do it." She pressed a series of commands. A low hum vibrated through the crawlspace. Mechanical locks snapped into place throughout the armory. Doors slammed shut. Automated partitions dropped from the ceiling, separating sections of the room. Sparks and smoke filled the air, confusing the intruders. Their movements faltered. Avery's mind raced. She had bought herself seconds, precious, life-saving seconds, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The intruders adapted too quickly. Their training was unmatched. From the shadows, the lead operative moved forward again, weapon raised. Hale fired, ricochets scattering sparks like fireworks, but the operative rolled smoothly, moving faster than any human should have been capable of. Avery's hands flew over the drive controls. She accessed encrypted files marked Talon countermeasures. Her father had anticipated this. The operatives weren't just soldiers, they were designed to hunt her. And he had prepared ways to neutralize them, non-lethal but disabling, using environmental control, sound, light, and electromagnetic pulses. She initiated a localized pulse. The operative's visor flickered. Electronic systems in their suits momentarily disrupted. Sensors recalibrated. The intruder stumbled slightly, enough for Hale to engage. Another operative moved from the ceiling hatch. Avery triggered another trap. A net of wires shot down, tangling legs and throwing balance off. The metallic hiss of tension snapped as the wires tightened. The operative dropped to the floor, struggling. Hale's voice was sharp. "Now, Avery." She pressed one final command. The crawlspace lights flickered, displaying a visual overlay of intruder positions. Sparks and smoke made the room chaotic. Using the holographic interface, she manipulated doors and barriers, creating a labyrinth that slowed the intruder's movements. For the first time, she saw it clearly. She wasn't just a target. She was a strategist, a commander, a force to be reckoned with. The intruders hesitated, adapting to each new obstacle, but Avery's mind moved faster. Every movement, every step, every decision her father had made came to life through her. She took a deep breath. "Hale," she whispered, "we need to get out now." Hale nodded. "Lead the way." As they prepared to move, a distorted voice rang out through the armory. "Assets secured. Do not attempt escape." Avery's stomach dropped. They weren't finished. They were still hunting, but now she understood something essential. She could fight back and win. Her father's legacy wasn't just survival, it was mastery. And for the first time, Avery Quinn felt the weight of that power in her hands. The crawlspace hatch lay before them, dark and narrow. Beyond it, uncertainty and danger awaited. But for the first time, fear wasn't paralyzing her. It was sharpening her. With the drive clutched tightly and Hale at her side, Avery prepared to confront the storm, and the operatives who had hunted her entire life. The crawlspace hatch groaned as Avery Quinn and General Hale crawled through it, emerging into the dimly lit maintenance tunnels beneath Fort Braddock. The smell of damp concrete, oil, and stagnant air hit her like a wave, but she barely noticed. Her pulse still thundered from the armory confrontation, her body humming with adrenaline and focus. Hale led the way, pistol raised, eyes scanning the narrow passage. Sparks from exposed wiring flickered across the walls, casting long, wavering shadows that made the tunnel feel alive, crawling with unseen threats. Avery held the drive tightly against her chest. It was her lifeline, her father's legacy, and now the bait that had drawn the Black Talon operatives directly to them. "They're still behind us," Hale whispered, his voice taut with urgency. "And they're fast. You need to keep your focus, Avery. Every move counts." Avery nodded. "I'm ready," she said, though inside her mind churned. The intruders hadn't just been hunting her, they had been testing her, probing for weaknesses, watching for hesitation. She couldn't afford a single misstep. Not now. A distant metallic clang echoed through the tunnels. The intruders had found a secondary entry point. Their black silhouettes shimmered under the emergency lights, moving with impossible synchronization, scanning the walls, the floor, the shadows. They were more than soldiers, they were predators. And now they had a trail to follow. Hale grabbed her arm and pulled her into a side alcove, pressing her flat against the concrete wall. "Wait," he hissed. "They're scanning the tunnels. We need to time this." Avery's stomach tightened. Time was a luxury they didn't have. She scanned the alcove, noticing small maintenance conduits above, narrow enough to slip through if needed. She caught Hale's eye. "I can make it," she whispered. Hale studied the path, then nodded. "Go, I'll cover you." With a deep breath, Avery hoisted herself onto the conduits. The metal scraped against her palms and knees, sparks flying. The intruders paused below, scanning the floor, their visors reflecting the dim light. Avery held her breath, moving slowly, deliberately, muscles coiled and ready to react. Halfway across, she heard a sudden hiss. One intruder had noticed something, a faint glimmer of movement in the overhead conduits. Avery froze. The operative raised his weapon. Before he could fire, Hale stepped forward, firing a round that ricocheted off the walls and sent sparks scattering. The intruder flinched, momentarily blinded. Avery moved, gripping the conduit tighter, and swung forward, landing silently on the opposite ledge. She crouched, adrenaline surging, and scanned ahead. The tunnels forked. One path led deeper underground, the other toward what she guessed was a maintenance exit. Hale's voice came from behind. "Deeper, follow me." They moved quickly, shadows among shadows, silent but deadly. Avery's mind raced. The drive hummed faintly against her chest, alive with the secrets of Black Talon Unit 0. Each file, each code, each holographic projection was a key, a weapon waiting to be activated. And now she had to survive long enough to unlock it. As they rounded a corner, a low rumble shook the tunnel. Sparks flew from exposed wiring. Avery froze. Something large blocked the path ahead, a barricade of metal and debris, too heavy to move silently. "They're setting traps," Hale muttered. "They know we're coming, they're predicting our moves." Avery's eyes flicked to the shadows. She noticed a faint pattern in the placement of debris, a rhythm almost like a code. Her father's training clicked into place. Read the environment, anticipate the patterns, adapt. She whispered to Hale, "We can use this, follow my lead." Hale gave a sharp nod. Avery moved forward first, testing the weight and placement of each metal beam, predicting where the intruders might have planted sensors or traps. The pulse in her chest matched the rhythm of the tunnel's threats. She guided Hale, step by careful step, until they reached a narrow ventilation shaft barely wide enough for them to crawl through. Inside the shaft, darkness pressed in. The air was stale, tight, but it offered concealment. Avery moved silently, inch by inch, the drive clutched to her chest. Hale followed, occasionally tapping a wall to check for intruders below. Then a voice echoed from the tunnels beneath, distorted, mechanical, yet unmistakably human. "Asset located, do not deviate, extraction is imminent." Avery's stomach dropped. They were being tracked even here. But she realized something terrifying. The voice didn't come from the intruders directly. It came from someone higher up orchestrating this hunt. Someone who knew her father. Someone who knew Black Talon. Hale's hand pressed against her back. "We're running out of time," he whispered. "They're coordinating. Someone is controlling them from a distance. Someone we'll have to face." Avery clenched her fists. She had survived ambushes, intruders, and nearly being captured in the armory. But this was different. The enemy wasn't just physical. It was strategic, calculated, and decades in the making. As they crawled through the ventilation shaft, the hum of machinery below grew louder. Sparks from nearby panels illuminated the walls, revealing another shadow moving swiftly. An operative had found the vent. Avery froze, but Hale acted first. He reached up and yanked a grate, pulling it down just as the operative's hand reached in. The intruder's helmet hit metal with a harsh clang. Hale kicked it with precision, sending the operative sprawling back into the darkness below. Avery's pulse raced, but she pressed on. Finally, the shaft opened into a larger maintenance bay. Dim lights revealed the silhouettes of abandoned vehicles, crates, and machinery. It offered a temporary reprieve, but Avery could sense they weren't safe. Hale scanned the room. "They're everywhere," he said grimly, "and I think I know who's leading them." Avery turned, eyes narrowing. "Who?" Hale's face hardened. "Your father's old teammate, Elias Quinn's closest confidant. He survived the purge. He's orchestrating this hunt not just for the vault, but for you." Avery's stomach tightened. The person behind this wasn't just powerful, they knew everything her father knew. Every tactic, every fail-safe, every contingency. And now they were watching her, controlling the hunters. A sudden metallic hiss made her jump. Another operative emerged from the shadows, weapon raised. Hale fired, sending the intruder sprawling, but the hiss was followed by a cold, mechanical laugh, distorted, modulated, and unmistakably human. "They're close," Hale muttered, "and they're waiting for us to make the next move. They want you alive, Avery, for their own reasons." Avery's mind raced. Her father's hologram, the drive, the vault, the pursuers, all converged into a single truth. She couldn't outrun them. She had to face them. And when she did, she had to be ready. The shadows shifted, sparks flickered, the distorted voice echoed again. "Asset secured, resist, and there will be consequences." Avery swallowed hard, gripping the drive. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The intruders were closing in. The leader was orchestrating everything from the shadows. And for the first time, she realized the full weight of what she carried. Not just information, not just survival, but the legacy of Black Talon and the fate of everyone who had ever relied on it. Hale leaned close. We move on my signal, and Avery, this ends with us, or it ends with them taking everything your father built." Avery's jaw tightened. She had trained for this. She had prepared her whole life for this, and now nothing could stop what was coming. Beyond the shadows, somewhere in the darkness, the leader watched, and the hunt for the last key of Black Talon had entered its deadliest phase yet. The maintenance bay stretched like a graveyard of forgotten machinery, dim lights casting jagged shadows that danced across the walls. Avery Quinn pressed herself against a stack of crates, drive clutched to her chest. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Hale's eyes scanned the area, muscles coiled, every nerve on high alert. "They're close," Hale whispered. "I can feel it, and the leader, he's watching everything." Avery's stomach tightened. The distorted voice from before had been unnervingly calm, almost bored, the voice of someone in total control, someone who had orchestrated chaos for decades. And now she understood. This was not just a team of operatives hunting her. This was a calculated, strategic strike from someone who had survived the purge of Black Talon Unit 0, someone who knew her father, and someone who had been waiting for her. She inhaled slowly, forcing herself to focus. The drive hummed against her palm, alive with secrets. The holographic interface flickered slightly, displaying schematics, encrypted communications, and operational logs. Avery's fingers danced over the controls, scanning for leverage, for information, for anything that could give her an edge. Hale leaned close. "Listen, Avery, we can't fight them all head-on, but if we can lure them into a confined space, we might stand a chance. And you're the only one who can trigger it." Avery's eyes narrowed. She understood. Her father had built failsafes, contingencies, traps embedded within the vault's data. If she could manipulate them correctly, she could turn the hunters into the hunted. A sudden hiss cut through the air, metallic and deliberate. Shadows flickered. Operatives emerged from all directions, weapons raised, visors gleaming. They moved with synchronized precision, cutting off escape routes, closing in. "They know where we are," Hale muttered. "They've adapted." Avery's mind raced. She accessed the tactical overlays on the drive, mapping the bay. She traced potential choke points, barriers, and machinery that could be used as cover or as weapons. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Read the environment. Control the environment. Adapt faster than they can." "Follow my lead," she whispered to Hale. She pressed a series of commands on the drive. Mechanical hums resonated through the bay as heavy crates shifted, doors slammed shut, and automated locks engaged. Sparks flew. The operatives hesitated, their movements momentarily disrupted by the environmental changes. But then from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Taller than the others, clad in black tactical gear with a visor reflecting the flickering lights. The leader. Hale's breath hitched slightly. "It can't be," he muttered. The leader's voice came, distorted and cold. "So the last key finally shows herself. Avery Quinn, your father's legacy lives in you." Avery's pulse spiked. She recognized the voice. Not just a tactical operator, but someone intimately familiar with her father's methods, his thinking. Someone who had been part of his inner circle. "You," she breathed. "You're the one who survived." The leader inclined his head. "Survived, yes, but more importantly, I've been waiting for the key to resurface, and now you've activated it." Hale tensed beside her. "He's dangerous," Hale warned. "More than you realize. He knows your father's tactics, his strategies, every contingency he ever set." The leader laughed, low and menacing, echoing through the maintenance bay. "Oh, I know everything. I was part of Black Talon Unit 0. And unlike your father, I've embraced what it means to be unbound by orders, by morality, by anything but power." Avery's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the realization. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a confrontation with the man who had been orchestrating chaos behind the scenes, hunting her, manipulating events for decades. He had waited for her to emerge, for the drive to surface. Everything had led to this moment. Hale whispered urgently, "Avery, you have the drive. You can trap him, but you'll need to act now. He's expecting hesitation." Avery's mind raced. She could see the environmental controls she had activated earlier: doors, machinery, electrified conduits. Every operative in the bay was reacting to her manipulations, but the leader remained calm, almost bored. He had anticipated this. "You think you can control the environment," he said, voice carrying over the hum of machinery. "Your father taught you well, but you underestimate me." Avery's eyes narrowed. "We'll see," she said, voice steady despite the adrenaline pounding through her veins. She initiated the next sequence on the drive. The bay trembled as concealed machinery whirred to life. Large crates shifted, forming a maze. Sparks flew from exposed conduits. Automated defenses activated, targeting operatives' armor, creating confusion. The leader moved forward with uncanny speed, avoiding traps, guiding his operatives around obstacles with calm efficiency. "Clever," he said, voice cold, "but not enough." Avery pressed further, overlaying holographic projections that highlighted weak points in the machinery, potential choke points, and blind spots. Her father's legacy, encoded in the drive, flowed through her instincts. She had been trained for this moment unknowingly her entire life. Hale fired from the shadows, taking down two operatives who had been too slow to adapt. Sparks and smoke filled the bay, but the leader remained. He studied Avery, analyzing her movements, predicting her decisions. "You're strong," he said, voice dripping with cold amusement. "But strength alone won't save you. Strategy, speed, precision, that's what matters. And you still have much to learn." Avery's breath caught. She realized that this confrontation wasn't just physical. It was mental, strategic. The leader was testing her, probing for weaknesses, waiting for a mistake. She adjusted the environmental controls, shifting barriers and machinery in real time, forcing the operatives to adapt to new pathways. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. The leader's visor reflected the chaos. And then, a flicker in the leader's armor, a slight miscalculation. Avery seized the moment, activating a pulse from the drive that sent electromagnetic interference through the operatives' suits, temporarily disabling their targeting systems. Hale lunged, taking down one operative. Avery moved with precise, deadly efficiency, using the environment to her advantage. The leader paused, a rare flicker of surprise crossing his otherwise impassive face. "You've learned well," he said, voice low, dangerous. "But the vault, the secrets your father protected, they will be mine." Avery's jaw tightened. "Not while I'm alive," she said, voice sharp, unwavering. The leader's hand went to his helmet, initiating a communication. More operatives were converging from unseen exits. "They're reinforcing me," he said, almost casually. "You cannot hold out." Avery's pulse raced, but clarity cut through fear. She had survived ambushes, traps, and hunters her entire life. And now, the culmination of her father's legacy, her own training and her instincts converged in a single truth: she would not fail. She activated the final protocol on the drive, a holographic overlay that trapped operatives within automated lockdown zones, isolating the leader temporarily. Sparks and sirens screamed. The environment shifted violently, turning the bay into a deadly maze. The leader's visor reflected shock, brief, fleeting, but real. Avery pressed her advantage, moving with lethal precision, the drive's holographic projections guiding her, predicting his countermoves. "You're mine," he growled, advancing despite the traps, "and you will regret this." Avery clenched her fists, drive held tightly. "No, you'll regret underestimating me." The distance between them shrank. Sparks flew. Shadows collided. The battle of strategy, instinct, and legacy was reaching its peak. The air was thick with tension, adrenaline, and the weight of decades of secrets. And in that instant, Avery realized something vital. She wasn't just confronting a man. She was confronting the shadow of her father's past, the culmination of Black Talon Unit Zero, and the truth of what she had been trained to become. The leader lunged, and everything hung in balance. One move could tip the scales. One mistake could cost her everything. Avery braced herself. She would not be hunted. She would not be broken. She would survive. And she would uncover the full truth of Black Talon, no matter the cost. The maintenance bay trembled under the weight of chaos. Sparks from exposed wiring arced across the walls, smoke curling into the air like ghostly fingers. Avery Quinn's pulse was a storm in her ears, adrenaline surging with every breath. She stood facing the leader of the Black Talon operatives, the man who had orchestrated her pursuit, who had survived the purge, and who knew her father better than she ever could. He advanced, a shadow in black tactical gear, visor reflecting the chaos around them. The other operatives had been trapped by Avery's final protocol, isolated, disoriented, rendered temporarily ineffective by her manipulation of the environment. But the leader remained, calm, precise, dangerous. "You've done well to survive this long, Avery," he said, voice low, cold. "But survival isn't enough. The vault is mine, and with it, everything your father protected will be destroyed." Avery's jaw tightened. She could feel the weight of the drive in her hand, the culmination of her father's lifetime of secrets, the embodiment of Black Talon Unit Zero. The holographic overlay from the drive illuminated the bay, showing schematics, operational codes, and contingencies. The vault wasn't just a location. It was a web of intelligence, technology, and power, all encoded in a way that only Avery could access. Hale pressed himself against the crates behind her, gun raised, muscles taut. "Avery, whatever happens, remember this is about control. The vault is more than information. It's a weapon. You control it or it controls you." Avery nodded, mind racing. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, engineered for survival, engineered for the vault. The key is you. The leader lunged. Instinct and training took over. Avery ducked, rolling behind a crate, drive clutched to her chest. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off machinery. She activated another sequence on the drive, opening a series of hydraulic panels that slammed down, creating barriers between them and the leader. He laughed, low and menacing. "Clever, but not enough. Your father underestimated me, and you've inherited his instincts, yes, but you haven't yet mastered them." Avery's mind worked frantically. She scanned the holographic projections, overlaying the environment with predicted paths, weak points, and tactical opportunities. Every second counted. Every movement could tip the balance. She saw it, the key sequence. A pattern of machinery, vents, and conduits that, if manipulated correctly, could trap the leader and secure the vault. But it required precision, timing, and complete focus. Hale covered her, firing with lethal accuracy to buy her seconds. Sparks and smoke filled the air, the sound of gunfire and metal clashing echoing through the bay. Avery slipped through the barriers, weaving between machinery, drive guiding her, instincts honed by years of training surging forward. The leader advanced relentlessly, weapon raised, visor scanning, anticipating her moves. Avery ducked into a small alcove, fingers flying over the drive's interface. Hydraulic presses engaged. Steel panels dropped. Conveyor belts shifted. Machinery groaned. The bay became a labyrinth, every move designed to slow and trap him. For a moment the leader hesitated, rare. His visor flickered as he recalculated. Avery seized the opportunity, activating a final sequence, a containment protocol encoded in her father's files. The machinery shifted violently, closing around the leader. Steel panels slammed shut, isolating him in a reinforced cage. Sparks flew, alarms blared. He pounded on the metal, rage in every movement. "You think this stops me?" he shouted, voice distorted by the helmet. "You've only delayed the inevitable." Avery's breath came in ragged gasps. She had done it. The leader was trapped. The other operatives were neutralized. The immediate threat was contained. but the vault's secrets and the weight of her father's legacy pressed down on her like iron. Hale stepped forward, lowering his weapon slightly. "It's done," he said, voice tense. "You've survived, you've taken control." Avery's fingers hovered over the drive. The holographic projection displayed the vault, its location, its security protocols, its contents. And then she saw it, the full scope of Black Talon Unit Zero's work. Weaponized intelligence, global surveillance networks, autonomous defense systems, and operatives, identities, all encoded, all potentially world-altering. Avery swallowed hard. The power in her hands was absolute, and with it came a choice that could reshape everything. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, calm, commanding. "The vault is more than a weapon. It is the choice. Use it wisely, or the world will burn." The leader's distorted voice hissed from the containment cage. "Do you understand what you've done?" he said. "You have power now, and with power comes responsibility or ruin." Avery's jaw tightened. She realized the truth. She could destroy the vault, securing her father's secrets forever. Or she could use it to rebuild Black Talon, to control the operatives, to wield the legacy her father had left behind. She looked at Hale. "What do we do?" she asked, voice trembling slightly, though her eyes were fierce. Hale's gaze was steady, unwavering. "You decide," he said. "Your father trusted you, I trust you. But remember, this isn't just about survival. It's about responsibility, about what kind of legacy you want to leave." Avery took a deep breath. The drive hummed in her hands, alive with secrets, alive with possibility. She visualized the vault systems, the operatives, the technology, the intelligence. And in that moment, clarity struck. She would honor her father's vision, protect the world, and reclaim control of her destiny. With deliberate precision, she initiated the final command. The vault's data was encrypted, secured, and isolated. Any attempt to access it without her authorization would trigger automatic neutralization protocols. The leader and his operatives were effectively cut off from the system. The containment cage's lights flickered, sparks shot from the panels. The leader pounded the metal, fury in every movement. "You think this is over?" he growled. "It's never over." Avery's pulse calmed. The vault was safe. She had survived the hunt. She had controlled the chaos. And she had chosen responsibility over power, strategy over revenge. Hale exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders for the first time. "You did it," he said quietly. "You really did it." Avery allowed herself a small smile, fingers still tight around the drive. "We did it," she corrected, glancing at Hale. "Together." The maintenance bay was silent now, except for the hum of the drive and the faint echoes of the intruders trapped and neutralized. Sparks from the damaged machinery illuminated the scene like a fatting storm. Avery stepped forward, drive in hand, and looked at the containment cage. The leader's visor reflected her image. For a brief moment, she saw recognition, the acknowledgement of defeat, and perhaps the realization that the last key had survived, and she had not just inherited Black Talon's legacy. She had mastered it. She took a deep breath, the weight of the vault, her father's secrets, and her own survival pressing down on her. The world beyond the maintenance bay was still dangerous, uncertain, and full of threats. But for the first time in her life, Avery Quinn felt the calm certainty of purpose. She was the last key. She was the heir of Black Talon Unit Zero, and she had chosen the path of responsibility, control, and vigilance. The vault was secure, the operatives neutralized, the leader contained, and Avery Quinn, against all odds, had survived the hunt, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next. Outside, the sun began to rise, spilling light into the corridors of Fort Braddock. Sparks still flickered from damaged conduits, smoke curling into the air. But Avery stepped forward, drive in hand, resolute, ready to embrace the legacy she had fought so hard to protect. The hunt was over. The story of Black Talon Unit Zero was hers to write, and she would ensure it was one of survival, strategy, and unyielding courage.